Taxation. What are they doing with all the money they collect? Every October, the federal government publishes how much money they collected and how much money they paid out for the prior year. The government fiscal year 2025 is officially closed and published, and we got a full detailed picture of all the money they brought in and where it went. And the gap. How much more did we spend than we collected? That's called the deficit. So if you care about taxes and how our elected officials are spending our money, this is the most important report. Let's start with the receipts. That's what the government calls the money they collect. Just a tiny bit more than half of the total receipts come from personal income taxes, the money we ordinary folks pay, all right? It's the biggest source of revenue for the government. So now let's talk about the corporations. They only pay 8.6% of total revenues. So did you hear that? We ordinary citizens are paying half of all revenues. Corporations are only paying 8.6% of revenues. A little bit more about corporate taxes. It's less this year in 05 than it was in 2024. All right? What's up with that? Tariffs. It ballooned. It's up 153% compared to 2024. For 25, we collected $195 billion. By the way, not trillions, as you may hear. All right? That's about 118 billion more than we collected in 24. But remember, where that extra tariff revenue come from? Me, you, maybe a little bit from corporate profits. It is not being collected and paid for by the foreign countries sending us this shit. Bottom line, guys, the U.S. federal government is ran primarily on money from us ordinary citizens through income taxes and now tariffs. Moving on to outlays. Where's the money going out to? Well, for starters, and probably the biggest expense, is the Department of Health and Human Services, right? They spent about $1.8 trillion in 05. And what do? That's for Medicare, Medicaid, disease control, and other safety safety nets, all right? We need a healthy running society. The big takeaway, why is it so expensive? It's because we have a really, really expensive healthcare system. Then there's the Treasury Department. They spent about $1.5 trillion in fiscal year 25. And the majority, almost all of it, was interest expense paid on our nation's debt. All right? Think of that. Nearly $1.5 trillion to service our nation's debt. So what? That is your tax money paying for things we already got. Bills that we have due. It's not for anything new shit, okay? Interest cost is the fastest growing category of expense for the federal government. And it takes away from what other stuff we can be working on. Speaking of defense, they spent $868 billion. You know, they haven't had a successful audit to explain where all that money goes for 5 years now. Here's the takeaway about outlays. Where we spend money reflects our values, our morals, okay? And what we don't spend on is a reflection of us. Now the deficit. We spent $7 trillion. We brought in $5.3 trillion. So we're short. We're short. Just in 1 year, we spent $1.7 trillion more than we collected. And we financed that additional cash need by adding to the national debt, which generates more interest expense. My goal here with these videos, break down money, power, and policy in simple to understand terms for everybody to understand. That way we can participate a little more in political dialogue and make educated voting decisions. This is our government, yours and mine. It's our money. You deserve the truth. Simply state it. No spin, no bullshit. Hopefully I'm giving that to you. But you can always dig deeper, rewatch, get more information on my channels, Substack and YouTube. Econ without the ego.